Good evening, everyone. Give us a few minutes while we share. Uh-oh. Good evening, everybody. Give me a few minutes while we share it out. Oops. Mickey, can you do me a favor, Minister, and push that middle button back down there on that speaker so it can turn off? Oh, Mickey got it. Thank you, Mickey. So sweet. Shouts out to ATN News Media Group and the greatest producer in the world, Mickey Jordan. He'll probably kill me about that later, but we're good right now. Give everybody a chance. Good evening. Hey, Anna. How you doing? Good evening, Melissa, Renee, Philip. Everybody share with me. We'll get started in a couple more minutes. Good evening, everyone. Hey, JoJo. Hey, Sarah. Hey, Brittany. Who's that? Nakia Harris, Philip Lee, Tia. Make sure you guys share. And if you're on the YouTube side, like, subscribe, and hit that little bell so every time we go live, you guys will go live with us. Mickey, you sharing it out? Okay. Good evening from DC. Oh, that's South Carolina. I thought it said DC. And then we got Baltimore. Well, Anna, you from the DMV, so that's the same thing. One more minute. I figure I'd bring y'all a little positivity today. Because my nerves was bad earlier today after that, going to the courthouse. So we need something to enrich our souls, our spirit, lift us up. Don't y'all think so? Good morning, Mama Quill. Good afternoon. Good evening. Good evening, big sister Christine. Yvette Bailey. All right, we'll go ahead and get started, and the people will follow. So, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. This evening, I'm surrounded by greatness. On my left side, I got Minister Troy Muhammad.
What's up? How are you?
I'm doing good. How you doing? And then on my right side, I got Minister, Reverend Bishop, Doctor Robert Olive. How you doing?
I'm great. Glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you. So, you was a special guest on here tonight. I should have put you on the flyer. I'm sorry, but charged to my head and I'm heart.
Not a problem.
So we just want to have a conversation. We just want to talk about some things. We want to talk about unity in the community.
Unity in the community.
Unity in the community and great things that's been going on. These two gentlemen, look, y'all, I tell y'all all the time, y'all told me to hit the highway. I went down to Detroit.
She hit the highway.
I hit the highway. I went down
the byway. She was all over the place.
And I came down there. And I met up with some terrific brothers down there that's been doing a lot, been guiding me, trying to tell me, give me a good direction, a good plan on how to move this city forward. What we do instead of just all talk and put some action behind it, because that's what we need here in Flint and across the country. A lot of you all in your communities are going through the same thing that we have going on in Flint, that they have going on in Detroit, and we just want to talk about it. But first, I know both of you are. Was it last weekend, a week ago, this past weekend, Savior's Day
Savior's Day.
was in Detroit, Michigan. I was so happy to be a part of it.
Glad you came.
Thank you. Thank
Mhm.
you very much. Minister Troy Muhammad out of Mosque number 1
Yes, ma'am.
put on that beautiful event. I mean, it was like blackness, unity, love everywhere.
Hmm.
So, I mean, what goes in to putting on an event like that?
Hard work, the same type of hard work you two put into this show. You know what I mean? It's a consistency.
Right.
And that's what we did in Detroit. And of course, you have the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan as the base of that. So, you just build around that. Um, I think one thing about the Nation of Islam, we have a consistent teaching. We're consistently taught about unity. We're consistently taught about brotherhood, sisterhood. We're consistently taught about supporting our own. So when you come to a weekend like that, you see black businesses. You saw hundreds of black vendors with black people supporting, coming to spend their money with their own. You saw positive programming and things like that. So I think that's the result of continuous conditioning. You know what I mean? Where that word, sometimes like what you're doing here, you're trying to get a word to the city of Flint. And sometimes you think it's falling on deaf ears, but it's not. You know what I mean? Pieces are coming together and people are awakening slowly to what you're putting out. Because, sometimes we all have to go through certain things
Right.
to get to a certain space in our lives where we say, okay, that's it. I'm ready to turn this corner. And as long as you continue to get a positive message out to people and, a message of truth out to people, you know what I mean? It's going to sink in eventually. So Savior's Day was a great weekend, but it don't happen overnight, right?
Right.
And the same thing that you're trying to produce in Flint, it's not going to happen overnight.
Mhm.
But as long as you don't quit,
Right.
we just lost Eric Mays,
Mhm.
who was a great fighter for the city of
Yes.
Flint. And sometimes that's discouraging for some when they see the person who they applaud, the person
Mhm.
that's speaking for them, the person that's working on their behalf, suddenly taken away. That could be discouraging.
Right.
But sometimes we have crutches. We use people as crutches.
Mhm.
And we push a person like that up front. Since he's always talking, okay, let him do it. Let him do it. Yeah,
Right.
that's right, brother. That's right.
Right.
Say it. But sometimes God has to take crutches out of our lives so that we can learn to stand on our own. And that might be what's happening in Flint right now, where, okay, this voice is gone.
Mhm.
So now it's going to take some of you who were in the background applauding that voice
Mhm.
to not stand up,
That's
Right.
right.
to not take the lead.
Right.
So, I'm looking forward to see what Flint is going to produce, and I think consistent people like yourself and others can really put this thing together. I'm looking forward to it. That's why I'm here today.
Thank you. Thank you so
Excuse
much.
me for not having a suit on
Yeah,
too. I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Have your suit on. See, my brother over here got a suit on.
He does.
Minister Reverend Bishop Robert Olive. So you're a part of the International Martin Luther King League, correct?
Correct.
So tell us a little bit about that and what's going on in Detroit and how that's developing and how you plan on expanding that.
Okay. Well, yes, I'm the global president for the International MLK League of
He
Community
said, hold up,
Leaders.
global president.
Global, international. Okay, international.
Cold title right there, the global
International,
president. Go ahead.
At the end of the day, um, it's all about just coming together. As I reflect over all of our communities, we can see great people that have done great things and doing great things. But what's lacking is sustainable success, right? Sustainable progress within our communities. And so the reason why we're lacking that is because we have not successfully, continuously been unified enough.
Right.
Because I don't like you today, I can't work with you tomorrow. And if the people is the mission and we got, love and God and unity at the core of that mission, then we can't do nothing but bear witness to the fact that the mission is bigger than self, bigger than me as the individual. So I might not like something that you're doing, but if we say we in this for the people, then we got to stand together, work together. And so,
Absolutely.
um, the MLK League was created to be that unifying table, that safe space for everybody to come together and only focus on what we got in common. Focus on doing what's best and uplifting the people,
Mm-hmm.
and putting all that time, energy, effort, and focus into that. And so, the part of the mission is to pick up the torch from where all our other civil rights organizations kind of left off at. Because, like I said, we got great work has been done.
Right.
But there's a changing of the guards that has to take place. And if not, we'll get stagnated in that good space. And
Absolutely.
so, just honored to be blessed to lead this space with some great people that is community focused and understanding that the mission is bigger than self.
Okay. Would you like to add on to that, Minister?
He said it all, Wyntis. Now it's your time. Now I want
I'm
to hear
interview.
I like to hear your assessment on what you've heard and what's been shared, and everything. Of course, it's all opinionated, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's filtered through our own personal experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
Robert's experience is different from mine. So
That's
his
true.
view may be a bit different, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Winters, you're here, you're on the ground, you've been involved. What's your view of what you're seeing? I'm the interviewer right now.
Okay, I see that. I think our city is lacking togetherness, but we're longing for leadership, if that makes sense.
Okay.
We need to, I wouldn't say necessarily like push people aside, but if you in the way, they need to, sometimes you need to move them aside. And we got a lot of people that's, to me, it's in the way. It's
Mhm.
in the way of making progress. And if they don't get out the way, we're going to lose our city. And I don't want to see that happen. I want to see, we shouldn't be stuck in a 10-year water crisis. Like, we got people tuned in from all over the nation that didn't know until they started watching A10 that we still in a water crisis. We've gone through the cancer. We still have cancer looming in our city. We still have things that the service lines haven't been replaced yet. And restoration, we have so many issues, so many challenges. Until it's like we gonna get caught up and lost, and we just need a leader. We need somebody to help push that mission forward.
Well, I remember hearing the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan say that we need to look to the leader within. Sometimes we get to the point where we're looking for that person, and that person is right there. And the first time I came on this show, I think I told you that about yourself. You're that person. Because sometimes when we see gaps, God has given them to us or for us to see. You know what I mean? And when we see the gap, it's for us to close the gap. And that, it's easier said than done. But it's really on the average person, because the average person is really not average. We just see ourselves as average. We see ourselves as not being enough or not being sufficient. So we look for somebody to lead us when it's in all of us.
That's right.
So if I put on the minister's hat without the suit, the scripture says, "Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and the Spirit of God dwelleth in you?" Everybody has it. You know what I mean? No one in this is left out. We just see ourselves when we look in the mirror as not enough. We see ourselves when we look in the mirror as not sufficient. I can't do it. I'm not. Nobody's gonna listen to me. But think if Dr. King felt that way. Think if Malcolm X felt that way. Think if Jesus felt that way. Nobody's going to hear me. And at the time, it looked like nobody heard him because they crucified him.
Right.
But now, 2024 years later, you have communities filled over 2 billion
Mm-hmm.
worldwide that heard the man's message and are not trying to pattern their lives after the man. So it's the words. In the beginning was the word. That's what you're doing on your radio station. You're putting the word out for people to hear. And sometimes it takes a minute for that word to become flesh in people. But if you can be that leader, then you can inspire somebody else to be that leader. But we have to, it's a whole piece, I guess, where you're, our people have gone through a lot. You don't see Chinese politicians, Korean politicians, but they got stores, they got businesses, they got communities in America. You don't see too many Arab politicians. Just as of late, you have a couple,
Right.
but they got communities and businesses throughout America. So it says something about, even Africans come over and they create businesses and things throughout the community. The only people who don't is the African American or the Black person who grew up in America. And that's because we've lost a knowledge of ourselves. So we don't see ourselves properly. And we have a low self-esteem based upon that. So it's about turning on that esteem.
Right.
And sometimes it means you have to be raised by the right parents. It don't mean you got to go to a mosque or some place to learn the knowledge of yourself. But if you had the right parents, maybe they can instill it in you. But it's a big task that we're facing.
Right.
Because we went through something major. We're only 400 years up from slavery. And that had a major impact on people. But now we're in a position where we can view ourselves differently. We see that we have crossed every box. We run some of the greatest businesses. We've led this nation as the highest position. We've done all of these things. So it's nothing stopping us from doing even more, especially in a city like Flint.
That's true.
And we just have to tap in. The word says that he gave us dominion over this plane of existence. We have to gain the knowledge of self and gain the knowledge of God and to be able to tap into that because we have all the answers that's needed right within. And if we reflect on the things that we've been through and things that we've overcame, we will understand that the sky is truly the limit.
Right. And I understand that, and I'm looking at some of the comments up here, like Anna is saying, like it's unfortunate, but sometimes foreigners have access to tax breaks that we don't have.
Some do, some don't, right? Some do, some don't. But you can't let that be, or we can't let that be our excuse as to why we can't make it happen. We've seen brothers build empires on drugs and hustling. You know what I mean? We've seen brothers build hip hop empires, not having the same access that we're talking about. So we've seen how we can overcome regardless of what we've been given. The greatest thing we've been given isn't a tax break, but ability, a brain to think, eyes to see, ears to hear, tongue to speak, brain to think, hands that bring into fruition what you think. You got every tool that you need. So we don't need the tax break if we got unity.
Right.
That's right.
And that's the big thing.
And unity doesn't have to take place in the whole community. It could just be you getting your family together, figuring this thing out. We know Arab families where you got 15 people living in one house. They all working. They chipping in on that rent or whatever it is until they have enough money to go out on their own. That's the unity amongst the small family, that put them in position to be greater later. We got to start thinking like that.
So,
And we got to, like as you said, just tap into that. Tap into the creativity that we all have. Like I said, if we reflect back on just here in America of what has been done and created here by our people, that right there lets you know that nothing is nothing that you can't do.
but what brought it out in you? Like what made you say, okay, I need to do something for my community? And you stepped up and you started or got involved with this organization.
So for me, it was being able to overcome the odds of the statistics of being young black in Detroit, overcoming the odds of what you can and can't do as a convicted felon or as someone who's been to prison. Um, um, Living for my mother, my little sister, and my fiance Lauren, who was murdered some years back, living for them. All of those things, play a part into what fuels me to keep going.
Okay.
And so, just those things, just those few things, is it for me. And being able to recognize that it don't take big things necessarily to be able to change a life. It don't take big things all the time to change somebody's narrative. And so I'm content with just doing many small things and then being able to meet like-minded people
Right.
such as you two who's doing small things that equal up to big great things. And that's what it's about for me.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. So besides Savior's Day, beside what else do you do in the community? Like both of you. That's my question for both of you. Like, because we're trying to find our way here in Flint. So what other things do you do in Detroit like that you can try to guide us along here in Flint, like activities, togetherness, unity amongst the community? What would you suggest?
Well,
Because we could talk about it all
yeah,
day.
I mean, you find unity with like Robert just said, you find like-minded people. And sometimes you have to get out and do a work for you to run into those like-minded people. You're not going to create the unity in the community piece going to the club, you know what I mean, or going to the hip hop concert. You will attract that type of person. Not
Right.
that they're bad or anything like
Right.
that, but in the area that you're talking about, you have to get in those arenas. Um, the question that you asked Robert, what activated him? I have a daughter, and she wanted to go to the military.
Okay.
And I'm as a father, I'm against it because I didn't want to hurt or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But when I dropped her and her friends off at the office, the military office, and then I went to their graduation 3 months later, 4 months later, they were totally different children. They
Mm.
had more discipline. They looked different. They walked different, in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me realize that, this government has the money to extract children out of the environment
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of program them.
Mm-hmm.
And I could say that's what happened to me when I went to prison. I was extracted out of the society. It allowed me the time to sit down and read a book and, do things that I had the ability to do, but I never did because I was so
Right.
busy in this world. And some of us, we get so busy in the world. We got bills to pay, children to be responsible for,
Right.
life to live. So then it's hard to, pull away from that and get on this mission,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a growth process, and we all go through it. I think that you got to that point. You've always been doing this work, really. As a nurse, you're doing
I
work
was
to
never a
help her.
nurse.
What
I
were
was
you?
just working in the hospital. I
Well,
was
working in the
director. Yeah.
hospital, it's serving people, though.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? The ability, the desire to be in a position to serve people. And that's what you're trying to do now. You're trying to continue that now. Community stuff we do, it all comes, we work in a juvenile facility, working with our young men and women, so that when they come out, they have a safety net. But in doing that, you realize they got so many family issues that they're coming right back out to the same mess. So then we try to find ways to plug those holes for them.
Mhm.
Besides the juveniles, we go to the high schools, the junior high schools, the elementary schools,
Mhm.
and talk to our children. Next week, I'll be reading stories to elementary
Oh, oh,
kids next week.
okay.
Then we do our unity programs and things like that. And of course, you got weekly services, religious services, because
Mhm.
that's a part of change and transformation as well.
Mhm.
So everything that we get invited to, I know me and this brother always go to, you
Right.
know.
You do.
So if it's somebody calling you for a funeral, I go do the funeral. I may not know them, but
Mhm.
just to be there where our people are in pain or hurt,
Mhm.
walk in the community searching for missing people.
Mhm.
We get engaged in everything. So Detroit has a great group of community activists who we all kind of grew organically, and we have friendships and relationships, and we work together. But it took time,
Okay.
and I think the same thing can happen here.
Okay.
It's most definitely a season for everything. You're gonna have your moments where, where everything look good, feel good. You're gonna have your moments when it's not. And during those times is when you can truly recognize your growth. You can really see and prepare yourself for the next level in that. And so, we have to stop looking at the dark moments, the difficult times, as something that we try to shy away from, and start embracing it. Because you never know where you're at if you don't know where you're going. You never know how great you are until fight an opponent or have an opponent that's better than you.
That's true.
And so, if we continue to just, focus on the simple stuff, the easy stuff, or shy away from the difficult things, then we'll never truly be able to tap into our greatest potential.
That's true.
And so we have to start embracing it and start looking and supporting each other. I know, like right now, what I've been seeing as I reflect and look at the communities is that we've taken on this mindset of, if it don't affect me, then it's not my issue.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and so we have to bring back the essence of the village back to the community, where your success is my success. I might not know you, but I want to see you succeed. I don't want to see you hurt. I don't want to see harm come your way. I want to be able to, look down the road at my children's future, creating the type of environment that we want. So a lot of times we shy away from being the change that we want to see, and if we start doing that, then that's how we slowly but surely start changing the narrative.
Let's talk about this today. We took a tour through Flint. We went from the Regencies to Russell Street, Austin, MLK, Flint Park. We traveled all over. And sometimes I feel like our children in our communities, we get sucked into thinking this is all that we're ever gonna be. This is all that I'm ever gonna see. Do you see that those same similar challenges in Detroit? Like, or what did you think? Well, first of all,
Yes.
what did you think about driving around Flint today?
Well, I mean, that's a conclusion you come to. It's the same. We have so many urban cities, they're the same. And then you have to come to the conclusion that it's not by happenstance. It's real reasons that we're in these positions and conditions. Um, so it exists, right? But certain people can climb out of it. We went to a black-owned grocery store in Detroit the other day. It was built on the east side of Detroit. And the brother who is the owner is 26, 27 years old.
Y'all hear that, Flint?
26, 27 years old. You
Grocery
can
store open.
look at it on my Instagram page, Troy Muhammad, or Facebook page, or TikTok, all Troy Muhammad. But you could see how this young man, he had a vision at an early age, and he worked and worked and worked to bring that vision into fruition. He took a house in the middle of a neighborhood and transformed it into a grocery store. Now, at first I said to myself, well, he's not going to have good traffic, but the only people he has to get involved is that neighborhood.
The neighborhood. Right.
So it was a beautiful thing, and it's something that can be recreated over and over again. But the amazing thing, he's only 26 years old. Right. He didn't get no tax breaks.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean? He just dedicated himself. He's not a hustler. Any of that. It was just a brother who sat down, wrote out a plan, started saving money, took advantage of some grants that were available and things like that. So, that to me, that was inspiring. And it just shows that out of these areas, you can find those little things that Brother Robert was talking about that add up to big things.
Okay. So what did you think about riding around Flint today?
Well, first I was impressed by how big it was. I didn't realize how big,
it was. You was just driving slow.
No, but when I look at Flint, I look at it. I look at it in the same lens that I look at Detroit and other places that I go, and that's the endless opportunity. I look at some of the vacant areas as a blank canvas that if we collectively come together, put a little bit in, that we can build this whole section out and create this as whatever we want it to be. Whether it's a safe haven, playscape, or whatever for the children,
Mhm.
whether it's some affordable housing that's really affordable,
Right.
right?
Really
Based
affordable.
off of the average resident's budget, or whatever the case is. It's just opportunity, and we have to start looking at things beyond what we see right now in the moment, and start looking future tense. And so, um, I mean, I'm quite sure that when you first started doing the podcast, right, that you didn't think that you were going to be able to reach the people that you were. I mean, I've seen people from all over the place,
Oh yeah.
that
Yeah,
you've
yeah. So
tapped into,
y'all was here today. Yeah,
and,
we
and
had
you know,
breakfast.
and just assuming you were probably just trying to create a space for Flint area,
Mhm.
but now you're reaching other states, you know, out of the U.S. And so that looking at things from a future text, is what's needed in the midst of when we see the dilapidation within our communities, and also consciously reminding ourselves that the things that we're going through is, like you said, is by design. We got a whole system that was designed for our demise. And then once you realize that, then you have to realize, well, why is that? Why little old me?
Right.
Why my little old black community have to? And then when you look at it from that perspective, that goes back to what we were initially talking about as far as knowing yourself and understanding the value of yourself, your self-worth, and the potential that you have. And then, like I said, tapping into that.
Mhm. Thank you for that. So, like, we was riding down
Thank
the
you.
street today, and you said, I know, I forgot what street it was on. It was like we could buy the whole block, and just transform it.
Well, because I mean, we've seen that in Detroit.
Mhm.
We've seen if it's a hustler, you know what I mean, guys buying the whole block up and then moving their whole families on their blocks. I mean, some of it, a guy might be hustling, but when you look at the entire picture of it, it's a beautiful thing because he's put his whole family on the block. And one time we went to visit a brother, and they knew who wasn't supposed to be
On
on
that
that
block,
block,
right?
right? You know what I mean? It was like cats looking out and everything, but that's happening a lot in Detroit now, buying up the block because the pricing is so low
Mhm.
that we can obtain something like that. So, the teaching of doing for self, do for self or suffer the consequences.
Mhm.
We've put ourselves in a position where we haven't done for self. So we got to go to everybody else for food, for clothing, for shelter. That means you out of doors, really.
Mhm.
If a food shortage comes, where you gonna get your food from? You don't grow your own. We're not teaching to grow our own or do for self. What I mean? All of these things are very important, and all of these things have to be taught. So it's a bigger picture. And when you talk about things, I work out in the morning with the mayor of Dearborn, and he was telling me once he got in office, he was able to see some books where before Dearborn was an all white community, affluent white
Mhm.
community,
Mhm.
and they had rules where you couldn't sell your property to somebody black. You know what I mean? He said this was in some of their paperwork.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And you think that stuff really ain't working behind the scenes against you. I'm
Mhm.
not talking in a conspiracy way, but some
No,
of these
that's
things
true.
are real,
Mhm.
that we're facing, that we're up against. When you look at a school in the inner city compared to a school in the suburbs,
Mhm.
all in Michigan when we all supposed to be getting money from the lottery, right?
Right,
So
right.
why is one better than the other? Why
Mhm.
is so all of these things got to be figured out. But you have the ability to do it. He has the ability to do it. It's just, it's so much around us that we get swamped. But the extraordinary individual, he can push beyond his circumstance. And so many get lost in the process. It's almost like the sperm going towards the egg in the womb. So many, it starts off millions, but then they get killed off in the process. But then that one brings forth life. It's the same thing with life outside. You know, everybody's not going to get there. We're not going to all wake up at the same time. That's a movie, you know what I mean? The Avengers or something like that. But in real life, it's those who are strongest, those who are determined, who are going to push through this thing. And hopefully they can inspire others to do the same thing. So I would say to you, to Flint, let's look at our problems and then let us be the solutions. Let us look to the leader within. Don't look for nobody outside.
Right.
It's right there in you. So let's take advantage of it. Flint, let's do it.
That's right.
What you got to say about that?
He said it right there.
She got
She just dropped the mic right there.
She got the earrings of a leader on. You know,
Thank
you gotta lead the way.
But you know, it's so many challenges that we face. It's so many things. It's so many problems. It's like you just grasping at straws sometimes. It's like what do you tackle first?
What do you tackle first?
Quiet.
I mean,
You know,
that's
it's
your
like
decision.
quiet.
That's
It's like,
your
like, what-
decision.
You
That's
have to-
your decision to make. What do you feel needs to be tackled first? Like I said, you may start off as a solo artist, but when you start doing the work, you're going to attract people who want to do the same thing. Then they can be directed in the areas. You know what I mean? It's not one issue because everything is somewhat connected.
Mhm.
So if I'm teaching a class of students and I'm teaching them how to do good and be right and you know, and I'm giving them all the perfect word of truth and they accept it.
Mhm.
Soon as they leave my classroom, they're going to go out to a world that contaminates them again.
Right.
Or they pick up their phone and look at the internet, social media.
Mhm.
It contaminates them again. So I'm saying there's so many things that we can attack. So it's not just one thing or this one goes first, or that one goes first. Because then we sit here, we're waiting on unity to happen.
Right.
Man, one day we're going to unite. I
Kumbaya.
ain't never heard no other people talking about uniting. We need unity. It's just us. You know, just get out and do. And then the people will come. That's what I feel. I've been blessed in that area. And the brother's been blessed in that area. You get out and do and people will come. You know, you saw 18,000 people at Savior's Day
Yes.
last week.
Yes.
You know, and it's not just the result of me, but we pushed. And we got thousands to come.
Mhm.
You know, and that's how
I
it
seen
begins.
people there from London.
Yeah, all
You
over
know,
the world to hear the
everywhere.
minister,
Right.
right? To hear the minister. But then you get in those circles and you're able to network with like-minded people.
Right.
You know, we told you that we would support what you're doing here and try to help, and we're here.
Mhm.
So you came to a space where you met different type of people.
Mhm.
You know, so that's how it builds, Wyntis, and that's how we're going to continue to build, 100%.
Okay. Thank you.
Just got to go for it. Don't you know? It's not a set instructions, set instructions or a set certain order that you put the ingredients into the pot. You know, as
Right,
long
'cause
as you
know,
got,
I'm always asking you, like, I need a
as
plan.
long
I
as
wanna
long
do
as you
this.
get as long as you get the basic things to cook macaroni and cheese, right? It don't matter, you know, how you which you know if which type of cheese you put in first, as long as you got the cheese in there. And so that's the whole thing. Just being able to identify what do you see is your low hanging fruit. What do you see is the maybe the easiest task that you can knock off or check off the list because the list is long.
It's a long list.
It's a long list.
Very
So the
long.
thing is, so you won't get overwhelmed by it. What's the easiest things that I can tackle first? What can I tackle on my own? And then it might be some things that might take a little longer because you might need some help. But by the time you take care of those things you can do on your own, help beating came.
I know.
There you go.
And you know, one thing that touched me and is still resonating with inside my brain. Last week I had on Percy Glover.
Yes.
And Percy, he works down at the Genesee County Jail.
Mhm.
And both of you having that history behind you, I feel like we got this forgotten population. And I feel like once you are taken away, like you said, taken out of society, you be put behind bars, you like, it takes your manhood away. Not in so much like taking your manhood away, but it makes you think differently. And Percy was saying, like, people in there don't know that they can still vote. They still have rights. We got 500 people plus in the county jail, and 46 people voted. And I was telling you all a little bit about that today. That's a whole population of voting that could like sway an election.
But compared to the
People from
numbers of people who vote out here, you know what I mean? It's the same
we can't
thing.
get them to vote out here. That's why I'm thinking like we
Right.
start from the bottom here and build
Right.
up.
So it's like everybody's in a prison, right? Prisons, physical prisons, prisons of fear, loneliness, prisons of a lack of self-knowledge. You know what I mean? It's so many prisons that people have to be broken out of, So it's a process, and you gotta put your word out until people, that the word becoming flesh. I think my first thing was walking home from school. In elementary school, I had to walk the neighbor to school because she was new and she was like 2 years younger. I had to walk her. And it was a boy behind us hitting her with snowballs in the back, right? So I had to defend her. I turned around and I was scared. But I said, man, stop throwing snowballs at him. He's like, what you gonna do? Right.
Right.
So then his boy come up. His name was David Mapp, right?
You never forgot
David
that.
Mapp, right. It was David and Omar, right? So I walk up to him. I'm scared. I swung first. I didn't hit him. I knocked his glasses off. By that time, all the teachers ran over there. But all the little kids, I was their hero that, you know what I mean?
Right.
For the rest of my days, I was their hero, So, but that started me on a path of defending people. If I had to go back through my history, that's what it started. And I'm doing the same thing today. But it's not, it's against different types of bullies. Like what you're doing when you argue at a city council meeting or when you pointing out wrongdoing, you're pointing out the bullies that's taking advantage of the people. And that's a noble work. It's long suffering in that. Dr. King went through long suffering. Malcolm X, long suffering. Jesus, long suffering, So it doesn't readily present itself. But damn, I'm sure Harriet Tubman wouldn't imagine what's going on today with us.
Right.
You know what I mean? She had to go through a long suffering. Frederick Douglass, Nat Turner, they went through long suffering for us to have the freedom that we do have. So it continues. The work continues. And unfortunately, it's like Black people in America are like the salt, the scripture says, but, if it's lost its savor. But we season everything in America. We built it. Everybody follows our trends, but they don't want to be us, right? But we also have a bigger responsibility, I think, and that's to become the new rulers eventually, because we've been at the end of racism. So we don't feel that racist vibe. We've been at the end of injustice. So we're not too quick to be unjust to somebody. We're unjust to one another. And that lines up with that self-hatred piece.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's very
because
true.
There's no reason I can shoot somebody that looks like me, hurt a woman that looks like my mother, my sister. That's a level of self-hatred. So it's a whole process that has to change. But you part of that change in doing what you do because you're showing people something greater about themselves.
But you it's like you showing people. We talk about it every single day. We point out the injustices that's happening right now in our city. And it seems like it's falling on deaf ears.
Well, I'm gonna say this.
It's not.
Moses didn't get a chance to see the promised land, but he started the children of Israel in that process, on that journey. All the individuals that Brother Troy mentioned, the Harriet Tubman mentioned, the Martin Luther King, the Rosa Parks, they don't see what we see now. They didn't get a chance to enjoy some of the freedoms and luxuries that we have now that they started fighting for. And so we can't get discouraged, because a thing don't look the way we think it's supposed to look
at this time.
right at this time. So, for example, let me put it like this. So, growing up, I said I wanted to be a doctor because I loved helping people. I wanted to help people. More importantly, I wanted to help children and elderly people. Now, imagine I'm talking 12, 13 years old.
Right.
I'm not a doctor. I ended up being a paramedic. That was the highest part in that medical field I got. But I'm helping people. More importantly, I'm helping children, the youth. I'm helping our elders. And so helping people today don't look like I thought it was going to look then. But I'm still doing the same type of thing. The same mission is being accomplished. So if we look at success just based off of how many people we get to show up to an event or how many people we get to, follow us on social media, whatever the case is, as opposed to looking at the substance that those individuals was able to receive, or to be able to see those who did show up, what were they able to take back and who were they able to reach after they went back to their respective places. That's a whole nother way of looking at it. But the mission was still accomplished. So we have to stop looking at getting caught up on things looking like we think it's supposed to look, especially at that moment, because you never know how, God ordained it to be in the first place.
Right.
So we have to start changing our narrative, our perspective on things like that.
And that's true. And I hear both of you. And I'm knowing me, I'm a little stubborn. But I'm also and I'm a little stubborn. Y'all know me now. Y'all know me a little bit. But I'm a big Tupac fan. And I remember Tupac saying, and I feel this in my soul entirely. I should be living my best life. Why am I picking up the fight that the last generation should have did? And it seems like to me over and over again, the baton is never passed with the light burning. It's always blew out. And we got to pick it back up. We got to light it back up. And then somewhere along the line, it gets put back out again, and somebody else has to pick it up. Like,
now, why would you say that it wasn't passed?
Because
when you can look at a clear history of a people enslaved, beaten, murdered at the stake, burned alive, limbs cut off. That's a real history, right?
Yeah.
And people fought to get out of that. They didn't just say we done doing it. Actual people fought to get out of that. I went to Virginia and I wanted to go where Nat Turner did what he did. And when I got there, I found they had no markers or anything like that. And I was blessed to link up with people who said that they were family members. And they showed me a marker that they had to put on private land because white people kept defacing it. But then I went on a tour. I was able to walk through the woods that they went through. I was able to go to some of the plantations and to see how far apart they were. That showed me how far these men had to run from each plantation, sometimes being barefoot, coming through swamps in order to get freedom for us. I went to where Emmett Till was murdered. I went in the garage where he was cut up. I went to the river, to the exact spot where they say they pulled him out. So people prior to Tupac paid a price. So a young man like that could get on and make millions of dollars while acting a damn fool. You know what I mean? To the point where he got himself killed. So it's like, yeah, we could put our own narratives on things, but people have sacrificed. People have done their part so that the next group could do something with it. Tupac did his part, in inspiring a whole different group of young people. So now it's up to that next group to run with it. But, just because nobody didn't fold it up and put it in your lap, perfectly,
right.
That's no reason to say they didn't do it. They didn't, why am I inheriting what they didn't do? I mean, damn, that's rough because you're looking at your parents, number one. And sometimes our parents didn't know. Now you see a lot of younger people with business acumen, knowledge of, insurance and things like that, stuff that our people were getting robbed on, you know? So it's a growth process, I think. And I don't think it's about passing the baton, but I think it's about a people that are maturing. Your questioning comes from a mature mind where maybe 40 years ago, we didn't even think to question the city council. We didn't think to question the mayor because we thought they would have our best interests at heart, even if they look, especially if they look like us. Yeah, we know they got our best interests at heart. Right. But then you learn as you grow. You learn by voting for Barack Obama. That didn't mean our condition was going to change. We might have thought, okay, it's going to be better, but you can't tell no difference in the Obama administration, the Bush administration, the Trump administration. They all affected us as Black people the same. So I think it's just a growth process that we're going through. You're the latest example of that growth. Our young people get on the internet and push out knowledge, wisdom, understanding, putting out police brutality, which we wouldn't have seen if we didn't have social media like we have it now. All of that is helping us all turn a corner. And you with this station, you're helping people turn a corner because you're putting out truthful information and you're putting thought in people's mind. It may not have been there before. So it's helping to open up eyes and it's helping us all in the growth process. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, what you keep saying thank you. Keep saying thank you. Now, what you think about that? What do you think about reinventing the process? Like, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like we've made progress? Of course, we made progress, right. But from just the previous generation until now.
Well, you gotta first and foremost look at the times is completely different. I think back, when I was in school, I think like kindergarten, first grade, they taught you how to write in cursive. They don't teach that no more.
Right.
So we living in a different time. Mm-hmm. And so because we're living in different times, what worked 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago is not necessarily going to work today. And so that means that we have to get creative with whatever situation or circumstance that we're currently faced with or currently living within, and then come up with a solution that best fits this moment. And so we can't necessarily cut out, or take away from those pioneers before us in any way, shape, form, or fashion, because it's a different time. And we also got to, bear witness to the fact that all three of us can look at that picture and see multiple different things. You'll see stuff that I might miss. I might look at, something, before you look at the face, I might look at the crown or whatever the case is. So we got to bear witness to the fact that we all look at things from different lenses, from our own lens, usually, and like Brother Troy said earlier, from our own personal experiences. And so because you might not have experienced prison the way that I did, right? Not at all. I'm going to see things in life different than you will, and vice versa. And so we have to be okay with that and be able to, just focus on the big picture, not just what we're seeing right here, right now.
Okay. All right. Well, what else? What else can we talk about?
You.
Yeah.
Me. I can sit here. I talk about me every day.
And the next moves that you have concerning Flint, Michigan. We came down here to look at the city of Flint to see how we can connect some of the Detroit activists with the city of Flint, helping them work through you. I think that that's a real thing. It's coming in. The picture is forming. I think that's going to be real strong and real helpful to what you're doing, because we're trying to identify people who are on the page with you.
Right.
And it's always good to be able to look to your left, look to your right, and see somebody that got your back and who understands what your you're continuing to point at.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of the process for Flint that we're working on and that's a unity where we're working from our space, hooking up with you in your space. That's what time it is. So it's a lot of different issues in the world. We're dealing with what's happening in Palestine right now and with Israel. Um, why is that important? Because as Dr. King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice anywhere. So if they can do that over there, it can easily happen over here. When you look at our communities, which have been painted to be the worst communities, they put our young men in prison. You put up the video, you got little sisters twerking and all types of stuff. They can make a case and say these people are undesirable. We don't want them. They're messing up our society, beating our women, and whatever it is. And then they can use things like that to justify doing something like what's happening to Palestine to us. So, unity isn't just unity on the block or in the community, but it's a world unity. That's why he's a global president. You know what I mean? He's not just a local.
Right, global.
He's global president because it's global. You know what I mean?
Let's talk about this globalness, this international. And let's talk about the Martin Luther King side.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the Nation of Islam side.
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle, I want to talk about voting. Voting is important to me, but making sure that we vote for the right people. Now, what are your perspectives on voting and getting people out of? How do you? Because I heard you say we voted for Obama, we voted for Bush, we voted for Trump, we weren't affected. So how do you feel? Both of you, I think, share differences about voting.
I didn't say we voted for Bush. I said they were in office.
I'm not saying.
I said they were in office.
Right?
However, I think that voting could work with the people who are knowledgeable of what it's all about. We just spent time with comedian Amanda Seals. Mm-hmm. And she has a great show where she goes out in the community. She asks questions like, how many members of Congress are there? What is Congress's role? What is a state rep? She's asking questions to average people, and the majority of people can't answer the questions. Right. So it's crazy that we would be voting on things that we truly don't understand in detail. Mm-hmm. So education is important when it comes to politics. Understanding what that means, what this person's role and responsibility is before you vote for them. We've missed out on that education. As of recent years, it's getting filtered more to us. So we believe that people should vote their conscience. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in the Nation of Islam, he tells us he doesn't endorse candidates. He says, vote your conscience. When you vote your conscience, you look at a person and you see how many of their goals line up with what you like to see. And that's how you cast your vote. But we haven't been a wise people like that. So we go either Democrat or we Republican. Right. Which is unfortunate that it's two parties, right? Because it doesn't even give space for one to grow or find something that fits them. So voting is cool. But I think we just need greater education when it comes to voting as a people.
All right, and your take on voting?
Well, it's most definitely important based off of your civil right? Mm-hmm. It's important, and I think it should be important to our people more because the struggle that went into it. As somebody who has been an elected official twice.
Doing what? Oh, now you got my ear now.
We got to stay on the topic. Okay. No, I was a precinct delegate.
Okay.
And so the importance or the thing that I don't like about right now when we talk about voting is because for the last few presidential election cycles, I keep hearing people talk about I got to choose the lesser of two evils. It should never be a situation where I got to choose bad versus worse or the devil versus Satan. Like it should never be that. That should never be in the equation. And the fact that we are only limited to two parties basically to choose from, um, is something that we need to really take a look at. Um, but more importantly, going back to the education piece that Brother Troy was talking about, is that we a lot of times we vote just of a name that we hear.
Right.
We vote Democrat because my mom and grandma was Democrat.
That's it. That's it.
And we don't really know any history
Mhm.
of the party. We don't really know any history of the candidate that we go check off on, say it in that circle on, on that
Mhm.
ballot. And so it's imperative for us to be able to start making more conscious decisions and choices all the way across the board, but especially when it comes to voting, because one, politics is not going nowhere.
Right.
Because all the way down to the expiration date on your eggs and your milk that's in your refrigerator is political.
Yes.
Slavery was political, and so we have to just be conscious of those choices and decisions. And when you become conscious of those decisions and choices, such as who's the candidate, that you're going to vote for, then you also have to start becoming accountable for yourself because this was who you put in office. So being able to reflect on, does this person's values, morals, concepts relate to me?
Mhm.
And if not, then that might not be the best candidate for you. I don't care if that person is a Democrat and you say you're a Democrat, or if that person is a Republican and you say you're a Republican. We have to be able to be accountable to ourselves,
Absolutely.
and then also hold others who we put in position accountable to be able to practice what they preach, to stand on what they told us, to do their best to execute the promises that got them into those positions. And then when they don't, we also have to be accountable enough to say, okay, we need to get somebody else prepared. And so one thing that I would like to see more of is for us to start raising ones up from among us. Um, if we constantly look to the traditional political lineage as those who we put in position, but then we see that, well, this person, the daddy was in office and now the son is in office or the daughter is in office and it was corrupt and nothing was really accomplished
Right.
through all those processes. Not saying that that son or daughter couldn't change that narrative, but if we see a ongoing pattern, then we need to start saying, okay, enough is enough, and start seeing who in our community is already doing stuff for the people, who in our community is already doing the work, and then work on trying to find out how do we get that person educated and prepared to be in that position.
And I like that because I think that's a big thing in Flint. We don't always have to vote on what's familiar and what's comfortable to us. Bring somebody up from within, because we have a lot of recycled politicians. I've been saying that all the time, and y'all know I say that. So yes, I like that. Bring somebody up from within that we see doing the work.
Well, I want to add, Minister Farrakhan had a lecture years ago that said politics without economics is symbol without substance.
Right.
So our politicians are usually submissive to those who support them financially to get in the positions that
Mhm.
they're in. And that's unfortunate because that means that the rich and the wealthy have control over the politicians. So you see things like, okay, we want to make laws against guns, but nobody's budging on that because they're owned by the NRA,
Right.
who finances a lot of the campaign. So, um, again, when you talk about, I guess the process should be we find those people locally and we put those great local people in office. And then they're supposed to move to the next ring. You know what I mean? Until they get to the higher ring. So you start off local as a council member. You show, hey, you're a good person. And then we move that person possibly to a mayor's seat.
Right.
Then from that mayor's seat, he might move to a state rep, senator, whatever, congressperson or whatever. But it has to grow locally, from the bottom so that you can kind of see the person, kind of really weigh the person. Um, but it's a big process. It's a whole educational process that needs to take place with our people and with our politicians. Unfortunately, the ones that are in office aren't it right now. Because they've come up and they're tainted and they get in these positions and you know and
They forget
do
why
the
they're
opposite
here.
of what they said.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, one that goes back to the education piece goes back to a lot of people in our community who felt that Obama sold us out or didn't do what we thought that he was supposed to do. And the unfortunate reality to that is a lot of the stuff that we thought or wanted him to do as president, he don't even have the power to do it because that was like your mayor, your governor, your city council, those types of individuals who uh, we don't even talk about nowhere near as much as we talk about our national campaigns. There's nowhere near as much money put behind our local officials as it is our national officials. When realistically, you know, what President Biden do in the White House today, we won't feel that for several years from now.
Right.
But whatever the mayor here do today,
We're gonna
we'll feel that tomorrow.
Right.
Well, that reminds me of something Judge Mathis was talking about. I think me and you were together, but he wants to go back to. He said how they used to do it in the 60s, the 50s, where they would get on buses and go to the cities. So if it's a specific mayor that they wanted in Flint, they would bring in groups of people, young people, into the city, and they would go door to door and press it to make up the difference in those who are financing the opposition. The good guy may not have the finance behind him.
Right.
But if you got the manpower, the woman power, it could help push you over. So it's people that are thinking about what you're saying, and it's just about us bringing everybody together. You know what I mean? To
And
start working
don't
on
you feel
those
like
things.
and I'm sorry to cut you off, but don't you feel like we gotta act fast on that? When you look at the southern states and how they trying to reverse everything, I don't want to get caught up in that. I don't want to go back to that.
We ain't going back. That's the bottom line. We're not
You said
going
we ain't
back.
going back. Okay.
When we have reference points. So say 1995, October 16th, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan called for 1 million black men. Over 1 million showed up. But if you just stick with the number 1 million, that's more people than the standing U.S. Army, which is 660 some thousand. So if it comes to things like that, we're not going back. You know what I mean? Our people we're not just no pushovers.
Right.
So I don't think that would happen. We'll see. And that might be what's needed. Because sometimes everything has to be taken away for you to take the stuff seriously.
That's true.
Sometimes you got to have your back pressed against the wall for you to fight. That might be the position we're in. But I know that we've proven as a people that we fighters. We've proven as a people that we don't give up. We've proven as a people, like the brother said, we baby's kids. We don't die, we multiply. So, I ain't worried about that. And when you think about globally what Malcolm X was trying to teach, you're not a minority. Darker people are the majority in the world. We outnumber Caucasian people 11-1. So in reality, all we got to do is stand up.
That's true.
To change the condition. So it's a profit for them to keep us not unified, to keep us thinking that we're different than the African, than the Jamaican, than the brother or sister in London, so we're not connected as we should be. But all we got to do is stand up, Wyntis.
Stand up.
Your voice might be the call. Get up! Like the brother when he threw the hat in the air. Where was that?
Montgomery.
I'll
you
toss
that hat fight in a minute.
Yeah, that's how it's going down. Toss that hat in the air.
Toss it up. Well, in closing, what's next? What do we have to look forward to with the nation and also with the international? Global.
Not international.
Global. Okay, global.
Another level.
Global. Okay, the global, Robert.
Well, from the 810 standpoint here in Flint, just looking forward to aid and assist you. and those like-minded individuals who is ready for change, who is ready and willing and doing the work for change, just to be able to be that aid and assistance to them.
I'm so excited to get started too. I'm so
and,
excited.
and of course to be able to use the global platform that we have to highlight the different things that need to be highlighted. You know, for example, there's no reason why every household is not have no don't have clean drinking water. You know,
Right.
still 10 years later here in Flint, um, we need to make sure that we bring that back to the forefront, because we have to be existing right now in the space and time of accountability, and that means that there's people that still need to be held accountable, and we have to take our own responsibility of doing our part to make sure that our brothers and sisters up here in Flint have clean drinking water, which is a necessity of life.
Yes.
And that's just one thing amongst many, right? And so you know, just being able to start checking things off the checklist one at a time, but you know, collectively standing in unity, against oppression, against division, and just you know stand the course to make it happen.
All right. What's next?
What's next? We're gonna throw the hat in the air and get all our people involved. You know, we're gonna come down here like I promised you, and I think I've kept my promise.
Yes, you
We're gonna bring more people here to be involved. I got a great brother who's from Flint, who is one of the leading selling authors in the world, who goes all over the world helping create systems of success in other countries, and he's right here from Flint, Brother Anthony Muhammad. I want to help you turn on the light. And you know, when you turn on the light, the roaches
Roaches
run.
get to scatter.
You know, so we
Right.
want the roaches running in Flint.
Mhm.
You know, and then the brother with his global power, he gonna put down the little roach spray. We're gonna get rid of them. We're gonna bring the right people here, people that we've worked with who have uh, shown us to be true and honest and for the right thing, and just try to hook them up with the brothers and sisters in Flint. And you're our key right now, so that's who we're gonna hook them up with, and we move them out.
All right. I'm going global, y'all.
Global.
That's right. That's
Well,
right.
thank you, gentlemen, so
No, thank
much
you.
for being on the platform tonight. We appreciate you, and
Thank you.
Thanks for having
and
us.
everybody stay tuned because we got a lot of work to do. We
Let's
just
get it
not getting
done.
started.
That's right.
So thank you, and we'll see you in the morning at 9 o'clock.